Good afternoon, friends. We welcome you into the Best Coast Sports Connection, episode 22, here live from McGregor's in Mission Valley. Andy Bishop, as always, joined by Brian Vilvin, Thomas Conroy, and our special guest this week, the one and only Jeff Kurtz.
Well, thanks for having me on, guys. This is really great. I mean, I invited myself a little bit here, so thanks for letting me invite myself.
Of course.
And you had to expand the tables I see. Normally I see you grouped around one, and now you had to go to two. So hopefully we don't end up with the naked gun booth at some point where we got so many people here. We're at like six
we've
tables
got the
in.
capability to expand to a two-table team. So.
I don't know how wide the camera can shoot
Thank
at that
you
point.
for
yeah,
thank you for joining
here.
us.
Yeah, thank you.
You have an open invitation at any time. So
thank you very much.
None of us would actually be here together if it wasn't for you, Jeff. So we thank you for having a hand in this thing being built. So
well, thank you very much.
You're like the they talk about like coaching trees, you know. Jeff is like the broadcasting tree.
Exactly.
It all starts. It starts with Kubroko, then KBC Sports, and Jeff's got like this whole tree. It's got branches that extend, the other side of the Mississippi. So we're all part of the Jeff Kurtz broadcasting tree.
I have never thought of myself as a tree before, but I kind of like the idea.
Yeah,
I like that.
This is the tree man.
Good stuff. Yeah. Hopefully we can do something with it here at the BCSC.
That's right.
Jeff, very much a mentor for us with sports storytelling. So I think it's pretty fitting that we have you here this week. A pretty heavy week in the sports world, obviously, with the passing of NBA great Kobe Bryant. One of those, I guess, experiences in life where you remember where you were when you heard the noise or the information about Kobe Bryant. Brian, you're rocking the Lakers shirt.
Yeah, got to.
Lakers fan your entire life. How have you processed this week?
It's been a really weird. Oh man, I'm getting like chills even just like thinking again. It's been a weird week, but I'm starting to, as the week goes on, and Alyssa, my fiance, asked me this morning how I'm doing, because every day has been like a little bit of progress. I think the biggest thing on Sunday and then even on Monday was the shock. I don't know. There's just, and we had been celebrating Kobe with LeBron passing him on Saturday night, and I thought LeBron's words on Saturday night in real time were so awesome, and I was like, oh, what a great tribute. And Kobe had kind of turned a corner where he was saying, I'm so proud that LeBron's doing this, and they had both been so much in the news. And so then the shock value of everything on Sunday morning was overwhelming. And of course there was sadness, and there still is a ton of sadness, but the shock was the biggest thing. And I'd say that's the biggest difference of how I feel today versus how I felt on Sunday, Monday, a little bit more Tuesday. Was the shock has kind of disappeared now, and now it's more like the reality of this happened and what happens next. I love the tributes, but I don't know. I guess the biggest difference between today and Sunday is that the shock is kind of worn off. And I would Sunday, I spent the whole day, I tried driving, and I was shaking, physically shaking. I shed a lot of tears. I cried again this morning. I watched the Clippers tribute last night. I've never been a Clippers fan, but man, that had me. And that was I don't know, it was not happy tears, but it was a different type of tears than the tears that were shed on Sunday. So, yeah, I don't know. It's getting not easier. I don't know, it's just getting different every day.
Yeah, it's something you don't expect, so it's hard to deal with. Yeah. Thomas, how did you find out about the news?
It was so weird. I was working on a free agent, NFL free agent, future article that from the website I write for, and one of our basketball writers who I used to work with texted me. He says, "Have you heard this?" And all I saw on my computer was, "Have you heard this?" And so I had to click on the icon, and when he said Kobe's dead, I was like, "What?" It was just one of those moments where you were like, I think every person has said it was. You just didn't believe it. You thought it was what kind of a person are you to do this type of sick joke? But the more you know, the more you researched it, and the more it became true. And then when finally I was actually watching the golf tournament when Jim Nance, kind of announced it to the viewers, I was just like crestfallen. I mean, I grew up idolizing Michael Jordan, because he put the dagger in my heart so many times as a Knicks fan. But you grew to love him and respect him. But man, I used to always get in arguments in college of like who's going to be the next Jordan. And I was like, it was supposed to be Harold Miner, and I was like, that guy is nowhere near like Michael Jordan. I don't care they call him Baby Jordan, but when you saw Kobe, you were like, that guy could be it. It was his fire, it was his intensity, it was his no-hold-barred play on the court that I just grew to love. I mean, to basically tell Shaquille O'Neal to get the hell out of here if you're not going to be committed to the team, there is just a small number of players that can actually do that. And he did it, and he got rid of them. And I was like, one of the things, Brian, you were mentioning, I was watching Sportsnet LA this week, and one of the episodes was Shaq. They were talking about they did a thing about it was for Kobe's retirement, and they talked to Shaq, and they said, when did you know this guy was the coming star? And he goes, it was when we had a Laker preseason dinner. He goes, I noticed I was sitting off to the right of Dr. Jerry Buss's table, and who sat to his left was Kobe Bryant. I went I called my agent the next day. I said, man, I might be renting here soon. This kid took over the whole place. And it was in Shaq's voice, and it was just like, you had to laugh because that's how he was, man. It was one goal. It was to play and win basketball, And he was just one of those type of basketball players, and I don't think we'll see another one quite like him. I don't think in my lifetime.
Yeah, crazy. Jeff, is somebody that's covered sports for decades, is there any tragedy like this that compares to what happened this week?
The one that leapt to mind to me was more localized, and I think it was when I was young. And Thomas, I don't know, you may not have been old enough then even, but it was when Thurman Munson died with the Yankees. Right. And I remember being young, and you expect your sports heroes, they're just around. Like like there's certain people in your life that are just a presence. Like you don't know them, but they're just a presence. And you don't realize that they're a presence until they're not there anymore, even if you've never met them, because you've seen them on TV or you've heard about them on the radio. And so Kobe was just a presence. Like I never met him, but I'd seen him play a bunch, so you feel like you get to know somebody by watching them play, and then suddenly they're gone, and it's like, oh shoot, now there's a hole that you didn't even realize had been filled in the first place. And I remember being a kid, and Thurman Munson, for those of you who don't know, a catcher for the Yankees, it was the All-Star break in '79, and he was a pilot, and he would go home to Ohio and practice flying planes, and he crashed his plane during the All-Star break and died. And I remember I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and I remember thinking, wait, that's not how it's supposed to work. Yeah. Like it doesn't work that way. Like the guys on your bubblegum card are just there, and then you read about them, oh, Thurman Munson passed away at age 75, and you're like, yep, that's when that was supposed to happen, right? Yeah. So even now as an adult, it was a gut punch in a way that I didn't anticipate. It being that was like, no, this guy is just supposed to be here until he's in his 60s or 70s or 80s, and then you read Kobe Bryant passed away today at age 79 of natural cause, right? Like that's just what you expect. So when something like this happens, I reflected on that in my youth, and just the impact he had that I didn't realize he'd had. Like everyone's talking about how they shoot jump shots into a waste paper basket and yell Kobe, and kids do this. I've had kids that I've coached in Little League, and they do that into the ball bucket with the baseballs when we're cleaning up after grounds. And I never knew that was like a thing, but it just sort of was. Yeah. And you got that, and now it's like, wow. Or Thomas, you and I are covering a high school game tonight between Christian and St. Augustine high schools. Christian has 2 kids on their team named Kobe. That was not a name you heard. Just like nobody named their kid Jordan until this guy named Michael Jordan was good. Like, there were Michaels all over the place, but no one named their kid Jordan.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there was this wave of boys and girls named Jordan that just popped out of nowhere. Now you got people naming their kid Kobe. Well, that's not because they just decided they like the town in Japan or they are like the state. That's because of this guy. So I don't know, just a lot of emotions. But I think a lot of people said a gut punch or a kick in the gut, and that's how it was for me too, very much. And then just like that presence, I think, was the biggest thing for me. Was just suddenly this person who was just there isn't. And it still feels surreal because I can go on YouTube and watch an interview, or I went and watched Muse, that documentary that he did back in 2015. It's on Showtime right now. I watched Muse, and I'm like, oh yeah, there he is, because he wasn't in my life on a daily basis like he was in people's lives in Orange County or with the Mamba Academy or what have you. So I can't even imagine how it is for them, or for Vanessa or for his family, that because he was there all the time, talking to them, being with them, and my relationship with him was a basketball game, an interview on TNT, a YouTube video, his Oscar win, that kind of thing. So that's kind of the thoughts I've had over the last week about Kobe.
It was one of the most surreal experiences I've had when I found out about his passing. As we talked about how fun it is to experience the Farmers Insurance Open here in San Diego. Tiger was in the tournament. He was playing good. It was Sunday. I got to enjoy it that day with my cousin and a buddy. So it was all positive thoughts. It was supposed to be a fun Sunday. And on hole number 6, when Tiger was coming to tee off, that's kind of when we found out. And you're in the midst of 50, 60, 70,000 fans, and everybody's kind of finding out. And it was a cold, kind of dreary day, and I was anticipating all these fun, amazing emotions to happen. And then this hits you out of nowhere, and it was the weirdest thing. I didn't anticipate it, and it kind of turned obviously the day into a negative. And it hit one of my buddies that was there with me the hardest. He's a Lakers fan, Kobe fan, and his mood just went way even worse than mine. And like, he didn't even watch the rest of the tournament like my cousin and I did, just 'cause, we still wanted to at least watch the finish. But it was so crazy. And then even as we continued watching the tournament, you had thousands and thousands of fans who weren't really probably sports fans, and they're just happy and drinking, and that's fine, having a good time. But it's like, there's no way in heck that I could possibly be feeling that when
Isn't
the
that
news
weird?
of this
like
broke.
the contrast.
Yeah.
Like, I found out on Twitter, and in between Kobe information coming through were people going on Astros cheating rants and the impeachment trial. And it's like, so you've got these weird or you've got people enjoying a golf event while simultaneously this really tragic event is happening at the same time. And it's just weird how life can throw these different contrasts your way, where you're having to deal with both, Andy, while you're at this event.
Well, and like Andy, we had been texting beforehand, and Andy texted Thomas and I and said, there's a really weird hush that has overtaken the crowd, and like, you can feel Kobe's departure at a golf event. Like a golf event that had nothing to do, no basketball connections whatsoever, except that it's sports fans or just people. Like, Kobe transcended, it wasn't just you had to be a Laker fan to be a Kobe fan. He had fans across the globe in a million different avenues. So to hear that, like, that was crazy to me. And then I turned on the broadcast, and Jim Nantz and Nick Faldo were talking about it, and they obviously knew, and CBS kept going to breaks with Kobe information. They thought that the players on the course probably knew. But it came to find out that Tiger didn't know until, his round ended, and his caddy took him aside before he had to go see the media and told him. And you saw, like, there's video of that and the pure shock that Tiger expressed when he found out. But it was so weird to be able to, like, watch these events, the Pro Bowl. The players at the Pro Bowl found out as they're out there on the field getting ready to take part in this game. The Aztecs were on the court at UNLV, ready to the game that I thought my entire weekend was going to be based around watching this Aztec game on Sunday.
Right.
And the Aztec game, as they were going for a school record wins in a row. They were going for 21 straight wins. They'd never done it before, and that game became so secondary. Like, the impact is it's unimaginable. I just can't even. I don't even get.
Well, even like Sabrina Ionescu with Oregon,
Yeah.
the fantastic women's basketball player up there, didn't even warm up because she was so connected to Kobe. They would text and talk all the time, and you see just these little connections that are all over the place that, again, you didn't realize existed. Maybe you just sort of knew subconsciously, but then there they were. And it touches you in different ways, and I just that was something that I kind of marveled at too over the course of the week.
It's so weird. Like, you know, at first I was like, David, my editors asked me to write something, and I was like, oh no, I don't even cover basketball anymore. I'm not even going to do it. And then I was thinking, you know, for our podcast website, I was like, I was going to suggest maybe we should all write something about, you know, just our feelings about Kobe, and then I was like, I don't know if I really want to do that either. And then just by osmosis, I just went to a piece of paper and I just jotted down like my emotions, and then I put it away, and then I actually went out and I said I have to get out. I can't watch this anymore, and you know. And then I came back, and then all of a sudden I'm in front of my laptop, and I'm just typing away and kind of crying and typing, and you know, it's just like, I took a moment. I was just like, you know, I watched this guy's entire career. He was such a cocky SOB 18-year-old.
Everyone had an opinion. You could not have an opinion on Kobe.
But he turned into such an icon that it was like, you know, like, I remember one time watching the Olympics, and I was like, wow, Kobe must feel so alone because they don't interact with him. I was watching, like, the warm-ups of NBC was showing. And then you come to realize after his death that, no, they weren't shunning him, or they were just like, they were in awe of playing with an icon, and that's why they had an arm's length distance away from him. Was this guy meant so much to them that they were like, I can't believe I'm actually playing with this guy. And, you know, it's amazing about that, and it's like, you know, even Michael Jordan, the ultimate competitor, even he was like, you know, I'm speechless. I don't know what to say. You know.
Did you read Bill Plaschke's article in the in the LA Times?
Yeah.
I thought that captured it so well.
Yeah.
About how much he belonged to LA, but he kind of in some ways belonged to everybody, and he was the kind of guy where if you wanted him on your team and you loved him, and if he wasn't on your team, you probably sports hated him, right? Like you know, because he just would kill you every time, right? So if you were a Knicks guy, probably hated watching him play against the Knicks, but the minute he was on the U.S. Olympic team, well, I'm glad he's on our team because we're going to win every game that he's playing in.
Actually, I didn't hate it when he scored 61 against them. I kind of enjoyed it.
The entire crowd loved that. Like, they were chanting Kobe at the end of that game at Madison Square Garden
MVP.
when he goes in there. I was actually living in New York at the time, and everybody was like, oh, did you see what Kobe did to the Knicks last night? Like, that's insane. And that kind of stuff, in basketball is kind of unique in that way, too, where players kind of transcend teams, you know? The big-name players, the Michael Jordans, you don't just have to be a Bulls fan to be a Michael Jordan fan. You don't have to have been a Cavs or a Heat fan to be a LeBron fan before he came to the Lakers. Like, I always liked watching LeBron because I was like, oh my gosh, this guy is insane. He's gone to 8 straight finals. Like, we've never seen anything like that. And at least in my lifetime. I mean, Celtics aside from 100 years ago, back when Jeff was a kid. No, just
yes, no, it's fine.
But basketball is a sport where the players really define things, and I don't know if it's because basketball is better at marketing their players or because we see their faces, they're not wearing hats or helmets. There's not as many of them on the court at a time, but Kobe went beyond team affiliation. You didn't just have to be a Laker fan to love Kobe and to like watching him play. So
Well, and the NBA is so great because there's these transitional players that mark eras.
Yep.
Like going back to George Mikan with the Minneapolis Lakers, that gives way to Bob Cousy and Bill Russell, to Wilt Chamberlain and Oscar Robertson, to Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, to Kareem, and then I grew up on Magic and Bird.
Larry Bird, yep.
And then Jordan coming in, and then you guys grew up on, right, Kobe. Was right in the, probably you were what, like entering your teenage
school, yeah.
years? Yeah.
Yeah.
High school. And so, and now we transitioned to LeBron, right?
Totally.
And so you've got these generational talents that connect within one generation of each other. Like Bill Russell was as moved by this as LeBron was moved by this, and the span of time between their two careers is enormous.
yeah.
But yet, because they're in that fraternity, and if you're a fan of sports at all, or just you pay attention to pop culture in the slightest, you're touched by that as well, even if you aren't watching the NBA 82 games a year. I ran into people who never watched the NBA who were moved by this whole thing. And so, and that's when you've jumped the generational touchstone from just an NBA player you might know, like a Harold Miner or I don't know, a Larry Nance or whomever, right? Name your player. That Mitch Richmond, guys we might know that most people don't. That's when you've leapt to this whole other echelon of culture in this country and in the world.
And the shocking piece about it is all the guys that you named, like the generational players, they're all alive.
Yeah, well, except for Mikan, but yeah,
that's from the very beginning. But
Yeah.
you're talking about like the last 50 years worth
Yeah.
of players. They're all
Oscar
they're old men
Robertson's
now.
still with us.
Yeah.
Yep. Willis Reed is still around.
So we just, I saw Kobe as like Superman. He was
Yeah.
my Superman. Thomas has the Shaq Superman shirt on, but Kobe was like this fictional character, kind of like the other guys you're talking about, and they're all still alive. Magic Johnson, it came out 30 years ago that he had HIV, and that seemed like the closest you could get to touching someone that with a superpower with something that could kill them.
Yes.
And Magic's still alive.
And you know what?
Like,
Honestly, the experience when I heard that news in 1991, I think it was.
Yeah, it was right before
was
the 92
very
Olympics, yeah.
similar because at that time you get an HIV diagnosis and that was a death
a
sentence.
death sentence for sure.
And
That's
it
what it
felt
felt like.
similar. Not exactly the same because obviously the finality of what happened in the helicopter crash is obviously very different. But the experience was similar.
But even
for me.
something like that where you thought it was a death sentence, somehow he got through it.
Yeah.
Because he's a superhuman. Like, these guys are superhuman characters. So this kind of thing's not, they're supposed to be untouchable.
Yeah.
And especially not at the precipice of what was about to be such an incredible life after basketball. Like,
Yeah.
some people retire and then they go away. And you see them at the Hall of Fame or at the All-Star game, or they get recognized every once in a while. Kobe was out there, man, and he was crushing it. He was doing so great in his life after basketball. Like, it wasn't supposed to happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I kind of have a slightly different fan take on Kobe. As we've talked about, grew up here in San Diego, and then going into middle school, my family moved up to Sacramento. And I never really had an NBA team, so kind of quickly became a Kings fan.
Yep.
And it's obviously when they got good there in the late 90s and were rivals with the Lakers
Yep.
when the Lakers went on their three-peat. So as kind of the small market fan, big Kings fan, the Lakers were the enemy. I would probably at that time compare Kobe with the Lakers in basketball as I viewed Barry Bonds with the Giants
Yeah.
in baseball. And it was basically during that same time, late 90s,
Yeah.
early 2000s. So obviously kind of the player that you hated as a fan, but as his time in the NBA grew and I maybe didn't follow the Kings as closely, you kind of grew to respect him for the icon that he was. But then with the news this week, I kind of just had to step back, and he's like, you see every story is about him, whether it's from a basketball player and an entertainer. You step back and you're like, wow, this guy was one of the top few NBA talents, playing in Los Angeles, the entertainment mecca. For a sport, the NBA, that, as you said, is so marketable.
Yeah.
And then within the last several years, the growth of social media, it's like everywhere I looked, there was a Kobe story. TV, online. It's like, wow, this guy, it was like the perfect recipe for, being a brand, all over the world.
Do you have a favorite Kobe story? Even if it's you were on the opposite end of a.
Yeah, I forget what year
Kings
it was,
fan.
but it's
Ouch.
when he got sick because he ate a hamburger in Sacramento.
Oh, he got food poisoning?
Yeah, from
Yes.
the hotel that he was staying in.
Yeah, and the conspiracy theory was that the staff had poisoned the
Exactly.
hamburger or
Yeah.
given him bad meat.
Andy wasn't working in hospitality
He
at the
was not
time,
at
or
the
else
time.
I'd have some real
Are we
questions
sure?
here. Yeah,
That might be your next article.
That's right.
Thomas.
We would be in there. He'd be
Hamburger
getting the third
gate.
degree right now.
That was such a great rivalry in basketball. The Sacramento versus Los Angeles. The cowbells. Phil Jackson, said something about it's just a cowbell town, and then the entire Arco Arena, everybody seemed like they had
Showed up at a cowbell.
Like a cowbell.
Well, the ironic thing I think for me was the night before, on Saturday evening. My boys and I had been talking about Lakers-Kings rivalries, and I talked about how there was this conspiracy that more fouls had been called on the Kings in Game 6 in 2002 than the Lakers, and we were having this conversation. And I'm like, well, now I need to watch and see. Maybe it was bad, and I just don't remember it because I'm a big Laker fan. I'm like, it doesn't matter. So we rewatched the whole thing, and I just marveled at how well Kobe played. And I hadn't watched a Kobe clip in I don't even know how long,
Yeah.
So I just kind of found that ironic. I don't know what it means, if anything, but I just thought it was interesting to me that happened.
And those kind of things are happening all the
Like with
time. Like
LeBron,
everywhere you
you
look.
know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And LeBron, you on Saturday night, I watched his 20-minute Kobe. I can't call it a eulogy because Kobe was there.
No, but
but
it's like
where
a-
he went on this whole rant about how impactful Kobe had been, and
Yeah.
it was so positive, and you're not used to seeing that type of thing from one NBA player to the next. And then I rewatched it on Sunday with my parents, and I just couldn't even. Man, that was really hard to watch, and it felt like a eulogy. And then Dwight Howard even said on Saturday night, he said, I'm glad we get to celebrate these people. Like, we need to do a better job of celebrating these people while they're still here. Not knowing what was going to happen 12 hours later,
Yeah, and that's
And
Dwight
for
Howard.
Dwight Howard,
who
a guy
probably
who-
had the
yeah, the-
biggest butting of heads
exactly.
of anybody.
A guy
in the
who
last-
those two guys did not work out well together, but even Dwight Howard at the time was like, this is Kobe, like he's the greatest. We got to celebrate him and celebrate him while he's here, and that yeah, man, that was.
And it was so weird when they announced that Dwight Howard was going to go into the dunk competition.
Yeah, he
he
wanted-
asked Kobe to be his coach.
And he
Really?
wanted him to be like
Yeah.
his partner. He wanted him to be throwing
Yeah.
in the lobs and
Wow.
stuff because he thought it's Kobe. I know he probably doesn't have time for this, but I want him to be a part of what I'm doing.
And that's kind of a message to all of us, I think, too, because if there were any two guys who I thought Dwight Howard is never going to talk to Kobe Bryant ever again,
yeah,
he would be the guy. And now he's going and saying, hey, will you coach me in the dunk contest? And when was the last time Dwight Howard was in a dunk contest? When he won it as Superman when he was
Right.
with
Yeah.
Orlando?
putting up the rim to 13 feet and still dunking.
Yeah, I mean, I texted a lot of people in my life on Sunday just to tell them I loved them. And not because I don't let people know or I don't think people know that I
Yeah.
do, but just because it felt appropriate all of a sudden that those little reminders you get in life where you better do that now, kind of
Yeah.
like Dwight Howard was saying.
Totally.
Yeah, and it's amazing how many other people that it brought that emotion into them as to
Reach
some
out.
of the meanings
out.
of life and the people in your life and how important that is. I want to ask you this, Brian. I mean, this is crazy to think. Your three favorite sports teams:
Dude,
Lakers,
because I
Chargers,
know exactly where
Padres.
you're going with this, man.
have lost.
The most impactful player from the team that I grew up watching. Yeah. From,
Junior Seau, Tony Gwynn, Kobe Bryant.
do we have Junior behind?
I
behind
think
us here?
Junior's
No.
is in here.
Gwynn
somewhere.
and
Junior's for
Ladainian,
sure
but-
in this bar. Tony Gwynn's in this bar. We don't have Kobe in here, but I bet they'll put Kobe up. Junior was really shocking. That was the first time I remember like a crazy shock. But that also, even Junior, as much as he was like a national brand and it felt more localized, and the local news covered it a ton. And I kept watching, and I had come across him and had a few interactions with him, and he was like an amazing guy, and I loved Junior Seau, and he really embodied like San Diego, being from here and all that. So that one really hurt. And then there was the CTE portions of it where he took his own life, but he didn't do it the way someone normally would in that circumstance because he wanted his brain to be able to be studied. Like, that one was really deep. And then with Tony, he had cancer. He had been sick for a long time. You still never think that like he's actually going to pass away from it. But there had been some reports that, he was out at an event and he could barely speak. Like, there had been indications that it wasn't looking good. And I mean, he was 56 years old, so you still never think that you're untouchable heroes. So those were really hard. But this one, man, and maybe it's because his daughter was with him and the other families, and you start thinking about the Altabelli family and the kids that they left behind and everyone who was affected. I don't know. This one really does feel different than those other two. But, yeah, man.
Do you guys have?
I don't even know what to say.
Did you go to the memorial when Tony at Petco when Tony Gwynn, the Tony Gwynn memorial they did there? I did too.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even a huge Padres. I'm like, I like the Padres. I'm not a huge Padres fan, but I like the Padres. I like Tony Gwynn. But I felt compelled to go. Like, this is something I need to do. I even told my wife, I don't know why I need to go, but I just need to go. And she rearranged her schedule and with our young kids at the time so I could go.
Felt like a calling or something.
Yeah, and so I feel the same thing here. Like, I haven't been to Staples in 2 or 3 years to see a Clippers game because they're cheaper tickets than Lakers games, right?
Yeah.
And I feel compelled at some point, like I got to go up there soon just because I need to do that, And I don't know if you guys feel the same way at all or not, but I notice I'm having that experience.
It's funny, I just went up there to watch San Diego State play Utah, and they closed off an area out by Staples because I think they're putting up a Kobe statue there.
Right.
And it's so weird when you walk around those statues because they have like Shaq obviously and Chick Hearn's table and even Bob Miller now and Wayne Gretzky. It's just like like you said, statues. It's kind of like that's the finalization of their status in life, their sports status. And it's going to be weird, just going up there and knowing that, he's not around anymore. And it's just like, it was kind of weird when he retired. I always thought in the back of my mind, like when Michael came back with the Wizards, like maybe Kobe comes back and plays like, 20, 30 games.
Oh, that was the talk when LeBron was joining the team. It's like maybe Kobe comes back as a, shooting guard off the bench.
And I've always thought like Ray Allen was able to play well into his 40s because he literally just stood in the corner and shot threes. I guarantee Kobe could shoot that well.
Yeah.
He just didn't have it in him to just be that player. Like if he's going to play, he's going to create, he's going to use his athleticism. Like if Kobe wanted to sit in the corner and shoot threes, he could play till he's 50 because he would get up 10,000 shots every single day, like, some astronomical number. He'd outwork everybody, and he could have played forever. But he couldn't just be that role player, He had to be Kobe because he was Kobe.
It's so funny. I read an article, and I don't know who the writer was, but he talked to Kobe, and he said, like, when did you know that you were losing your skills? It was a predated one from when he was retiring, and he goes, oh, you know pretty fast when you can't run up and down the court. He knew his body was going on him, and he said I knew I had to come up with a different move. So he said he Rolodexed in his mind all the great centers with a low post move, and he said, I'm gonna call up Hakeem and try to find out how to set myself up in the low post.
A guy with no knees and no mobility.
Yeah.
And he totally stole Hakeem's low post move to the baseline, and he invited Hakeem to the opening night game of that year, and he laid it on him. And he goes, hey, man, you stole my move. He goes, yeah, it's going to keep me in the league for about another 10 years. It's just amazing how he did that. He could, he was a true,
My favorite
mimic people.
My favorite Kobe story that I saw was not the 81-point game or even the 60-point game in his last game, which was by far one of the most incredible
Yeah, that was insane.
sports experiences I've ever seen anybody, even more than the 81-point game. That he willed himself to 60 points in that one, and they won the game. That was mythic.
Yep.
But the thing that struck me was because I'd had a personal experience with this, when he ruptured his Achilles tendon, and he walked back out on the floor to shoot those free throws.
Yeah.
I've ruptured both of my Achilles tendons at different times playing basketball, and suddenly that walk across the floor, that might as well be 25 miles long if you're going to walk out of the gym. Like I was walking out of the gym in Spring Valley at the Spring Valley Rec Center, and a Marine, active duty Marine who'd been playing in a basketball tournament that I've been playing in, saw me, and I'd gotten maybe halfway across the gym in 5 minutes, and he's like, I'm just going to carry you the rest of the way. And I got carried out by a Marine who is an angel as far as I'm concerned. That's like, and then he walked back. You cannot move your foot like this when your Achilles tendon ruptured.
Yeah.
You can go side. You cannot. He walked back out on the floor and shot 2 free throws, and I knew what that took, and I'm like, that is absolutely incredible that he did that.
And he made both free throws.
And he made both free throws. Like, if he misses a free throw, now he's hosed because you
Yeah.
cannot move in that moment.
Well,
if
if you
he's now
remember-
playing defense.
They were fighting for the 8th spot in the
Yes.
playoffs at that time.
Yeah.
And he was having probably the best season he
Right.
had ever had. And even maybe not statistically, but I looked it up. He was slightly under in points per game, and he was even in rebounds, and he matched his assist total from whatever. And you had to combine a couple years to get that. He was playing out of his mind.
And Gary Vitti, the former trainer for the Lakers, he said on a radio interview I heard the other day that was the only time he ever saw Kobe cry. Was when they walked
Wow.
back to the locker room, he collapsed in front of his locker, cried. He said it was so awkward him crying that he walked out of the room, and then he came back in. Kobe was just like normal, and he goes we're gonna have the surgery tomorrow at 6:30 in the morning. He had the surgery. Vitti said he woke up and that day of his surgery at 11 a.m., Kobe already had texted him and he says, my season begins tomorrow, and he rehabbed the next day after he got out of the hospital.
Wow.
That's intense.
You don't see that too often.
No.
Well, I remember the impact that had on you because we were already working together at the time, and you said that Kobe was like an inspiration. And when Chris Cashman, another buddy of ours, tore his Achilles, you said, look at what Kobe did. He did this. Here's the route you should go. Here's the surgery you should have, and you can get back. Like, you've been using Kobe as the Achilles poster child for years, you know, because of how quickly he was able to come back. And you had the same surgery that he had, correct?
Well, without
You
getting
had
too
a
deep into
version.
the medical,
Yeah.
he had a different one than I did.
Okay.
Mine was more like arthroscopic. It's kind of a cutting edge one, and it creates less scar tissue and lets you get back more quickly. So I was able to go play baseball again 4 months
Kobe's not as
after.
cutting edge as Hefe over here.
Yeah, I know. I actually
Cutting edge, Jeff.
not like he was going to pay attention to anything I tweeted at him, but I tweeted at him, hey, this is the kind of surgery you should try to go for because it creates less scar tissue. But whatever, they've got good doctors.
You didn't know that he
need to
was
hear from
already
me.
laying on the table.
Yeah, I did not realize that he had already had the surgery at 6:30 in the morning. But that he was able to do what he did coming back from that, and that he'd walked onto the floor to make that happen was, given that I'd had an experience similar, nothing short of miraculous that he pulled that off. That is just your will, because that is a long walk all of a sudden. That is a normal walk, and then you do that. That is a long walk across that floor.
And kind of bring everything full circle with the Achilles. Richard Sherman said at the Super Bowl this week that when he tore his Achilles, being a big Lakers fan, he told the trainer, "I'm walking off the field like Kobe."
Yeah.
He said, "I'm not going to be," because they were ready to bring out the cart for him. And he
Or
said,
you
"No
find
way."
a Marine to carry you out. Because that's not a bad way to go out either. If there's like an alternative way to go out, you have a Marine carry off the
That's
floor.
pretty good.
That sounds like an officer and a gentleman.
It was.
Type of
I
scene.
felt a little bit like that, but I was no position to like quibble
Richard
about
Gere,
how this
Devil
was all
Ringer.
going down. So it was very generous.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that the Achilles story certainly sticks out for me, and I think kind of on a bigger level with his success as a player, the fact that he was able to win 2 more titles
Yep.
without Shaq, Finals MVP those 2 years. That's when I, as a Kings fan, kind of finally had to bow down to him and admit that he was, top 3, top 5
Cried
player,
uncle.
whatever. Yeah.
You were talking about like the Kings running up against those Lakers, like the 2000, 2001, 2002 Lakers. Being a Kings fan must be a lot like being a San Diego sports fan, where the Padres, the 2 World Series we've been to, the '84 Tigers, which team was out of control, and then the '98 Yankees that people talk about as maybe, if not the best, one of the best teams that's ever played baseball. And then the Chargers go up against the '94 season 49ers, Jerry Rice, Ricky Waters, Steve Young, like one of the best football teams of all time. And then when the Kings were in their heyday, they had really, really good teams, and they were in the West with Shaq and Kobe. Like, good luck. How?
Yeah,
that's why our teams don't have any championships.
The World Series losses, the game, Game 4, where Ori sunk the 3-pointer after Vlade tipped it back out. That was a deflating blow as a Kings fan. I think I saw this thing online the other day, and it said an article on the 5 worst professional sports teams to be a fan of.
Oh yeah,
The Kings and the Padres were both.
They were
on that.
1 and 2. The
Yeah,
Kings
and
are
then,
number
the
1 right
Browns
now.
Maybe,
It's
and then
called
a couple other
the
teams.
Fan Misery Index.
So when you finally win, Andy, it will be so sweet,
Yes,
and it will erase everything that has ever happened prior to that.
exactly. That's why I'm at McGregor's every week here.
I'm gonna find another
People
way
are going to
to
start second guessing watching the podcast based on who we're all rooting for here.
Oh man, we'll bring it local a little bit more.
Okay.
One of our favorites, Kawhi Leonard.
Yep.
A lot of people, from what I've seen this week, they've kind of compared him to Kobe. In some minds, they see him at least with his skills, how he's just kind of, cutthroat on the court. Obviously a quieter personality than Kobe. We'll see his jersey retired here at San Diego State this weekend, tomorrow.
Which is super, super awesome. The only confusing part is like his number is not being retired, but his jersey's being retired or something.
how does that work?
I don't know. I don't know. Thomas, you
Thomas,
may
you know,
know.
you're like our
he's
inside
our San
Diego
Diego
State
Aztec
insider.
insider, but
I'll have to get back to you.
because there's something along the lines of they can't actually retire a number, but they're retiring his jersey.
Is it like
or
an
something.
NCAA rule where you can't retire
I
a number?
don't think it's an NC. I don't know exactly what the deal is, but it's not. They're like being very careful to say it's not his number being retired, but it's
Did
his
they promise
jersey.
it to some new recruit who's coming in?
I don't
Hey, you
think
get-
it's that, but
I don't know.
maybe it's the finite number of units. Whatever it is, I haven't heard a good explanation. That I don't exactly know. I just know his jersey and his name is being lifted into the rafters for the first time ever, and it's super exciting. But he's totally like that hard work and just mind to the grind. Like that is Kawhi Leonard, and seeing the fact that he and Kobe share that helicopter and the same pilot and everything, and like Kawhi would take a helicopter back and forth to Clippers practice and games because he lives in San Diego, and instead of sitting in all that traffic, like he got from Kobe that he's going to take the helicopter, and he's been doing that. He said that pilot is his pilot almost every time, and that he'll pick up Kobe, drop him off, pick up Kawhi, drop him off, say like, hey, Kobe says hello, and Kawhi would say, hey, tell Kobe I said hello, because he's going to pick him up. Like, that's pretty crazy too.
And all the young players that we've watched at the high school level, I mean, we've covered Kawhi Leonard before when he was in high school, and then the DeMar DeRozans of the world who were impacted because they grew up in the LA area, or the James Hardens who grew up in LA, or the Drew Holidays,
Paul
who are now
Georges.
All-Stars, the
Yep.
Paul Georges, the Russell Westbrooks. I mean, all these guys who played, who maybe didn't try to copy his game, but were influenced because they grew up in LA.
Yeah.
You know, and so you know, I don't know if Kawhi I think Kobe and Michael Jordan are more aligned, but if you watch that win that Toronto had last year, that I think so far is Kawhi's opus in terms of championships, because that was a series that they necessarily weren't going to win.
Yep.
And unlike in San Antonio, when he still had a good Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, and Manu Ginobili around him, Kyle Lowry is good, and Van Vliet's good, and all these guys are good players, but Kawhi was the difference maker there to give them a championship. And if he doesn't win another title, that in and of itself gets him in the Hall of Fame, I think. I mean,
he's 100%
without a doubt.
I thought that the most impressive part about last year and that win was I thought we were about to see his opus 2 years before that, when with the Spurs he was getting ready to take down the Warriors, the Kevin Durant Warriors that went on to win the title. And in the first game of the Western Conference Finals, Kawhi was going off against the Warriors, and they had like a 23-point lead, and then Kawhi got injured, and then Golden State came all the way back and ended up winning that series, either a sweep or won it in 5 maybe, but with no Kawhi, the Spurs were nothing. But he had the team on his back. Like, we see Kawhi's jersey as a Spur there, and if he had taken him, first of all, the first finals where he was MVP, that was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe an Aztec is the MVP. This is so cool. Like, wow, Kawhi had a really good series. And then for him to become, over the next few years, the best player in the world, it's crazy. I did not see that coming.
Yeah. So our current Aztecs, we'll kind of switch it over to that. As we've talked about before on the podcast, we're kind of comparing them to that 2011 team with Kawhi that went to the Sweet 16. Still undefeated. Number 4? Am I right with that?
4.
Number 4 in the country. Taking on Utah State. Thomas, this just continues to be the story of the city this year.
I know. It's so crazy. It's, every game. I mean, Wednesday, you only had to watch the first 5 minutes, and then you could have done anything you want. I mean, to go out against, I thought New Mexico, I was like, man, that's going to be a tough game. I was telling all my friends, we were kind of texting, and I go, man, that's going to be a tough game. I'm always like, they never play well there. They play decent, but, sometimes they get into these, scoring slumps for, like, in weird moments in the game where they look like they're dominant, and then all of a sudden it just fades away. But, man, when it was 17-0, I was like, I cannot believe what I'm seeing here. I was like, wow. I mean, that game was over. I mean, even the announcers were trying to, like, will them back in New Mexico, and they couldn't. They're like, oh, this could be the run. And I was like, and then they put the score up. I'm like, what? It's only 15.
They're trying to keep you entertained at that point, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and then finally they just went to promoting the jersey ceremony on Saturday and how CBS Sports is going to broadcast it live. So I was like, they know this one's over. But
Hasn't State given 4 teams their only home loss?
3.
3?
Yeah.
New Mexico,
Utah State, and BYU.
Yeah.
That's a crazy stat.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to ask you guys this question because you've been watching San Diego State more than I have. How good are they really? Like, I asked that question. Now, I know they're 22 and 0.
Mike.
Thomas, you can get this to a 3-shot now because Jeff is off.
No. But I'm asking this question. How good are they really?
Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, I know. You look at the Kawhi team, and they were phenomenal, and you saw NBA-level talent there. And I think Malachi's NBA-level talent.
Yeah.
But so I guess but I'm measuring that also against, okay, the Mountain West isn't great. I look at some of the other, and this is a down year in college basketball a little bit, so that opens the window, I think, for San Diego State. But then you look at some of the other teams, and I'm like, okay, well, how would they do against Oregon, really? Like, how would they do against a Kentucky team, really? And you guys have watched them more than me, so what are your thoughts on something like that as you assess at the tournament level if they're a 1 seed or maybe a 2 seed at the worst? How do you assess them against some of the other bigger programs that are out there that aren't playing an SEC or an ACC team right now?
Well, I mean, to me, it's all about guard play in the NCAA tournament, and their guard play is amazing. They go 4 deep in the guard play, and they got now 3-point shooters. I mean, basketball is so different than when I grew up. I mean, if you have guard play and sharpshooters from beyond the arc, you're going to go far, and they do. I mean, to me, the most underrated player is Trey Pullum. I mean, that kid came out of nowhere, and he played a key role in the UNLV game, in the Utah game that I saw in person. He was besides Flynn, he was the second best player on the floor. And they got an active center in Wetzel. I think that they have the right component. They're the most, Kawhi's teams are special, but this is the most complete team that they've had under the Fisher, Brian Dutcher reign. As they can score, and they can play defense. And to me, with Kawhi's, if Kawhi couldn't go off on a high level scoring wise, then they had trouble staying in games. I mean, the BYU game that they lost, I mean, they basically used a box and one on him and kept him away from the basket. He couldn't score, and nobody else could come up to that task. I mean, Kyle Spain in that game was horrible, and but this team is like, there isn't one player that you can concentrate on. It's really about a 10 deep squad that you have to really kind of try to slow down, and right now nobody can slow them down.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you on the point of the offense, and I've heard Coach Dutcher mention this a couple times in comparing it to that 2011 team, of how the offense is just a little bit more consistent. And I think I saw the year of Kawhi, he only averaged 14 or 15 points that year. So, I mean, you think Kawhi Leonard, he probably averaged like 20 or 25.
Yeah.
But I think that's the point that I think about a little bit more, is a more consistent offense. You think San Diego State, it's going to be a lockdown man-to-man defense every year, but I think that added component this year is what gives me hopes.
Yeah, totally. I said maybe a month ago or so, I was looking at it and I was like, this team could be as good as that team. So that team is like the standard bearer. So we look at the 2010-11 team and say, I mean, they had Malcolm Thomas, Billy White, DJ Gay, Kawhi, Tapley. Like, they had a ton of really good players, and DJ Gay was a stud. They had a really good guard play at the time. That's kind of been a big staple of this type of team, but they couldn't shoot the three consistently. They played lockdown defense, and that's why they were so good and why they had so much success. But that is the difference maker on this team. You've got 8 to 10 guys who can score. And right now they don't have Nathan Mensah, who was a stud down low, but Yanni Wetzel has stepped into that 5 role, and he plays like a Gonzaga big. Like a guy who can shoot it from the outside, so you have to take him seriously there. He can drive to the basket. He gets himself in amazing position down low, so he gets a lot of opportunities because he just put himself, between his man and the basket and gets easy buckets. He finishes strong. He, down low, gives them a presence. And then you have every other player on the team that can shoot the lights out from the three. KJ Fagan hit 5 threes in the first half on Wednesday night. And KJ Fagan came in from Santa Clara averaging almost 18 points a game there. He came to San Diego State and said, I'm going to play lockdown D. When you need me to score, I'll be there to score. I can still do it, but I don't need to be that. I just want to be a part of a winning program. So everybody has been drinking the Kool-Aid. Malachi Flynn in that New Mexico game, he didn't even score until the Aztecs had like 27 points. Malachi got his first bucket. We already know he can get his. Jordan Shackle, Matt Mitchell, the way he accepted his role of being, the sixth man, and then now Nathan Mensah's out, so Mitchell's a starter again, but he can shoot well, and you don't just have to have the one guy who's a shooter on fire that game, and then you can score. They have so many players. They've got a rope coming off the bench. You already talked about Pulliam. And then Keyshawn Johnson, he's had some flashes of great play. He's a player who's a freshman, and he had 3 monster dunks against New Mexico. He can also shoot it from the outside. Like, they literally go 8 deep on players who can put up over 20 points in the game. And they're also just the most lockdown defensive team in the country.
Which that's been kind of
part is
part of their hallmark.
Yeah. Totally.
So the depth,
super
the better
deep,
interior play on offense from Wetzel in particular, and probably Mitchell a little bit as well, and then the 3-point shooting from multiple people makes this a more maybe not a better team yet than
More
11,
well-rounded,
but more
for sure.
well-rounded
And-
and for a bigger run maybe.
Yeah, and
And a
not
lot of
so
it is doing
reliant
matchups too, right?
Not so reliant on one player being the guy.
Got it.
If
Okay.
if they try to
All
shut
right.
down Malachi Flynn, you can get 27 straight points out of everybody else.
Okay.
And in the NCAA tournament, you're going to have to get lucky still. You're going to have to get some breaks. I never thought we would actually be talking about a San Diego State team as a national championship contender. Like, oh, they could really win it. It's like, oh, well, if everything went right. And,
It still feels a little bit like that, does it? Like
Of
they
course,
might get
because-
a one.
because
like
we're
cross
never
your fingers. They
because
might
we're
be a
never
one
supposed
seed.
to win.
Yeah, and
we're
last
San Diego.
year,
We don't.
They don't even make the tournament. Such
Yeah.
a mediocre team, so there wasn't like a lot of hype going into the season. You know, so
Totally.
it's very much unexpected.
And you know what's great about this, guys, is we don't even talk about Steve Fisher anymore. And no, nothing against, I'm not trying to bash Steve Fisher, but
Yeah.
it shows you that Brian Dutcher has developed his own team and his own identity as a coach. And that's what the great thing about it is you're seeing Brian Dutcher's team out there.
Yeah.
You don't have some guy when they're losing, well, these are Steve Fisher players. Wait until Dutcher gets his own. No, he has his own players. And, it's multiple websites that have them as a number one seed. It isn't, some
Right
guy
now,
trying
it's
to,
every
yeah.
single one.
Yeah.
There's not a single bracketology that doesn't have the Aztecs on the one line.
Exactly.
So maybe I'm just being like sitting on eggshells because
I mean,
it
that's
might be a little bit of like that
that's
San
the
Diego
San
fan
Diego State
PTSD
way to do it.
where you're like, wait,
Absolutely.
how are they going to mess this one up?
For
like, how's
sure.
that going to?
That's always
Yeah.
in play.
Welcome to the podcast.
but
Maybe we
when,
need to
when-
just give that up. Maybe we need
when
to put
you,
that aside
when
and
you
go all
say
in.
it, it's okay because you're coming from a place of like cautious optimism.
Yes.
The people that I hate when they do it is like the Kentucky fans or the fans
yeah.
that are just so
No.
they feel entitled and like,
No.
oh well, you don't play anybody. We try to schedule you. We tried to schedule Texas Tech. We were in a tournament with Texas Tech. If they had won their first round game, we would have played them, but they lost. They didn't hold up their part of the bargain. The Aztecs have played everyone they've put in front of them, including 4 top teams, quad 1 wins,
Yep.
and they've beaten every single one
Yep.
of them. They have a chance for a 5th one this weekend against Utah State. So line them up, baby. We're going to smack them down.
Yeah, that's
I'm
what I
all in
love.
on these
All right.
Aztecs.
All right.
I love when Kentucky tells you about they play a tough schedule and they play Alabama. Play Alabama football and beat them, and then tell me you got a tough
Yeah, right.
schedule. Not Alabama basketball, please.
Thank you, Thomas. Thank you.
So the question is, are any of you taking the Aztecs in the BCSC NCAA tournament pool?
I am picking the Aztecs to win the NCAA tournament absolutely no matter what.
I am too.
Is there money on the line? Because
Even
then
if there's money on the line, I'm taking them, baby. I want them. I'm in.
I think it depends on the matchups too. I think what bracket they get into and where they land. I mean, I think that's
Let's
gonna
get a
play
pool.
role.
Okay, so what I think is going to happen, and I want the Aztecs to be in the West no matter what. I'd rather be a 2 seed in the West than a 1 seed anywhere else.
Because isn't the talk
Because
now
the
they'd be a
West-
1 in the East?
Well, I mean, ESPN today had them as the 1 in the West, and Gonzaga the 1 in the East.
Okay.
But the West, the way the bracket plays out, no matter what in the first round, the highest seeds get regionally placed. So they're going to play in Sacramento in the first round. Even if they're the 1 seed in the East, they'll play in Sacramento round 1.
Yeah.
That's just how it works. But when you get to the Sweet 16, like the second weekend, that's when the regionals take place in set spots. So the West is in LA. It's at Staples Center. The East, the Midwest, they're all over the place. So I would prefer to be a 2 seed, or even if you dropped them down to like a 3 because they lost 1 or 2 games coming up, in the West where you get to play at Staples Center weekend number 2 because you're playing in Sacramento weekend 1 no matter what. I'd rather go Sacramento, LA than Sacramento, Durham, North Carolina, or wherever
Right.
the hell, Atlanta.
Right.
So, but I also can't envision a scenario. If the Aztecs win out and go undefeated, they are going to be the number 1 seed in the West. They're going to be probably the number 1 seed overall in the tournament, even if Gonzaga only has 1 loss. The undefeated Aztecs will pass. They'll be the number 1 seed in the West.
Yeah, because at that point you're looking at, like, if Gonzaga loses a game because of their pedigree now, even though they play in the WCC, which is not a great conference, the voters are going to be more likely to stick with them because they've had more sustained excellence. Where I get the sense that if San Diego State loses a game and now they're 23-1, okay, they beat
They'll
Utah
drop
State,
down
they
to
lose
like 23
Yeah,
in the
they're
country.
suddenly they're now like 15, as opposed to if Duke loses, They
Yeah.
go from 6 to 8.
Duke rises in the rankings.
Yeah,
with
they
the
go,
loss.
yeah, exactly. They
Those
lose the
people were-
game
yeah.
and they're up to 5.
Yeah.
San Diego State loses, they're going to go from 4 to 24. You know.
But with how the net rankings look, I think the voters know. Like, if the Aztecs lose a game or two, then that'll give them what they need to send them to the 2 or 3 seed in the West. But if they go undefeated, they're going to be the 1 seed in the West. So
Okay.
I think no matter what, the Aztecs will end up in the West, win or lose out the rest of the way. So I'm feeling good, man. Feeling
All right.
real good.
I like your
Love it.
analysis.
Love it. Well, we've been talking for 45 minutes, and we haven't talked about this thing happening on Sunday, the Super Bowl.
Oh,
I'm sorry. What?
oh, that little thing.
I think that's part of the weird experience of this week with Kobe's death is that I think I've maybe read one article, watched one video
Yeah.
on the Super Bowl, which is something I'm totally jazzed about. Football is my favorite sport. NFL has always been my favorite sport to follow. So, like, not even really having much of an appetite to
Isn't
be
that weird?
interested in that, especially at early, mid part of the week. I'll probably, obviously prep up for it a little bit tomorrow, but it's hard to have a lot of feelings for it this year,
Yeah, that is weird.
Chiefs in 5. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have not thought much about the game.
How many times have you seen an AFC NFC championship game get thrown off the back pages due to the Astros scandal, and then the Super Bowl hype has been to virtually null, like Andy said, because of Kobe's death? I don't think I've ever seen it in my lifetime where it's like, oh yeah, by the way, the Super Bowl's this Sunday.
I know Andy said it, and even as he was getting ready to say, like, and we've talked for this amount of time, we haven't even mentioned, I didn't know what you were going to say. I so forgot that the Super Bowl is a thing that I didn't even know where you were going with that. I can't. You've just blown my mind. Like, that's
usually the thing we would
Friday
lead with.
before the Super Bowl.
We would lead with that.
We should have been talking about it the entire time, and I haven't even thought about it.
And it's a
That's
matchup
blowing me
that
away.
I've been intrigued by for the first time
Since I first told you about it on December 13th when I called this matchup.
It's like Tom Brady every year, Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Now we see Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah,
the
new
49ers
blood.
team that nobody expected to be in it.
Yep.
So it's a great matchup, but
Totally.
crazy not, having anticipated as much as normal.
Well, let's give it its due for a
Yeah,
second.
absolutely.
Who you got, Andy, and why?
Chiefs 34-27.
Oh, Andy has thought about it clearly.
That's pretty
Thought
quick.
about it on the drive.
I really thought about it all. 34-27.
Mahomes is going to throw for 422 yards.
I think the key matchup, so to speak, is the Chiefs front seven against the Niners offensive line. We saw what the Niners did to the Packers with running for 200-plus yards.
Yep.
Mostert just going off. But that guy's story is incredible. How he's, I think, played for 7 different teams, got cut by 7 different teams, and then runs for 4 touchdowns in the NFC Championship. So I think if the Chiefs can limit the Niners' rushing attack, that'll put the pressure on Jimmy G, and we'll see what he can do, throwing 40 passes.
Yeah.
And then I'm a believer in Mahomes.
Me too.
Mahomes in big moments, and I envision it in the Super Bowl. Chiefs by a touchdown.
I like the Chiefs too. I think they're going to win by a little more than that. I got the Chiefs by like double digits, maybe 14, 17 points.
Wow.
I just think that offense is so dynamic. I thought the NFC was stronger overall than the AFC this year, but I don't know. I feel like Kansas City has gotten off to a slow start in their last couple games, and then they've put up 40, 50 points each time. So I think this time they're not going to be in such a hole because everybody's going to start slow. The Super Bowl just does that unless it's the Chargers and 49ers. Every team starts slow in the Super Bowl. So I think both teams are going to start a little bit slow. Kansas City has the firepower to run away with it, and I got the Chiefs by 17.
Okay. I'm going to make a series of blanket statements backed up with no evidence.
We'll post them to Twitter. Don't worry.
That's the way we operate.
Good. I'm getting right into the
When in
group.
doubt, go with this outlandish prediction.
I had to get caught up real fast because this is episode 22 for you guys,
That's
right?
right.
So I got to jump right in. I can't. There's no warm up here. So the one thing I do like that the story for Kansas City Chiefs fans is this is the first time they've been to a Super Bowl in 50 years, right? I mean, you know, that's all just NFL Films archive stuff. Their last game against, you know, when they played and won back in 72, 3, I don't even remember, you know, whenever that was. A long time ago, right? So I like that piece for Chiefs fans.
Yep.
But I've watched the 49ers for a long time. And they just find ways to win games that, given that I don't like the 49ers, makes me think that even though I'm rooting for the Chiefs, they're going to do it again here too and rip out Chiefs fans' hearts. And honestly, I think, Andy, it comes down to the front four or maybe front seven of the 49ers defense because they are really, really good. And I think I'm going to say, if you have a great defense, the better defense wins the Super Bowl. That's my blanket statement number one, backed up with no evidence. People are probably going to go on Facebook and say, well, what about the Super Bowl 30, whatever.
TC Wardell's going to come smack
sure,
you
good,
with, no,
fine.
that's not
fine.
accurate.
I go ahead. That's okay. I said a series of blanket statements that I may or may not regret on Monday, but I think the 49er defense is so good. They've got the better defense in this one. And even though as magical as Mahomes is and the skill guys they've got, Kelsey, Hill, I don't know. I mean, the 49ers have taken every good offensive team in front of them and made them look ridiculous. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is the backside of Aaron Rodgers' career, but that Green Bay Packers offense is pretty good, and they couldn't get anything rolling in both of their games. You know, the Rams' offense was not as good as it was the year before, and they couldn't get anything rolling. I mean, only the Seahawks have really played the 49ers tough this year. So I think much to my regret, because I would love to see Kansas City win this game, I think San Francisco is going to take it, and I think it might be a 7 to 10 point game in there somewhere. I don't have 34-27 the opposite, but like, I don't know, 27-20, 30-20, something like that. I think Kansas City's below their average significantly because of that 49ers defense.
Tico.
I agree with you on the defense, but not this year.
Okay.
It's the offense. That offense is so high octane right now, and they've been on a roll since early November, and I just don't see it. I don't see their defense. I don't see the 49ers secondary keeping up with the fastest receivers in the NFL. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just talking about Tyreek Hill. Hardman has incredible speed. I think Kelsey for a tight end is fast. And Williams, the Mira Mesa grad, he could come out of the backfield and do some job. They have a lot of weapons, and it's the speed. I just don't know if you can match the speed in that game. You're hoping that Bosa and the front and Armstead can neutralize Mahomes in the pocket, but I haven't seen anybody neutralize him yet because he has speed.
Yep.
and he can elude. It's predicated all on speed and just the age on the 49ers secondary. They're a great team. Don't get me wrong. I'm not.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be key and really for Jimmy G. Garoppolo's going to have to throw it at least 20 times in this game to keep him in the game. It can't be a run fest like they won the NFC title. They're going to have to throw the football, and if they throw the football, then they probably get it closer. But I think it's going to be a close game. But I think in the end, the Chiefs are going to stretch it out to about a 10-point, 34-24 game.
So here's how we'll know this all goes, right? If you do your show next week and I'm not here, it's because Kansas City won. But if I'm doing the show by myself, then you all know why that is too.
Well, see, what actually happened was
Kurt's report.
Jeff told us at the beginning of our broadcasting careers, he said the cardinal rule of broadcasting is never disagree with me. So now that
I don't remember saying that at all.
Now that we have our own show, we all decided to disagree with Jeff because it's the first time we could without repercussions. So that's why we all have the Chiefs. Just kidding.
If it becomes the
JKSC.
We'll see how long this broadcasting tree lasts. If the
Jeff
roots
really
are all
thinks-
ripped out after this weekend and you
If
guys
he
are
thinks
by
we're going to
yourselves.
publish his article that he's writing right now, this guy's crazy.
Already.
Get him out of here.
I may be off to a really poor start on the
Go
podcast
Chiefs.
front.
Go
This might be a
Tigers.
short-lived medium for me here, and I may have to go back to play-by-play.
Well, we'll round it out with the sport of baseball.
Oh,
Glad
God.
to have Jeff here to provide some insight in a few different areas. Kind of the big news for Padres fans this week is the name Mookie Betts.
It's a bunch of non-news.
Yeah, right? Rumors,
Yeah.
dreams. But his name's been connected to the Padres, most recently yesterday with the Dodgers. Is there any reason for the Padres to trade for Betts for likely just a one-year rental?
Yes. And his name is Will Myers. Well, first of all, any chance you get to have an MVP come into your team and a guy who is widely considered a top 5 player in all of baseball, if you get a chance to bring that player in and you don't have to get rid of your top prospects, you've got to seriously look into that. And if you get an opportunity to get Will Myers' contract off the books, where we owe him, $61 million over the next 3 years, if the Red Sox take even half of that away next year, we probably can't re-sign Mookie Betts, but we'd get 1 year out of him, and we would have a lot of financial flexibility that we otherwise won't have, and we'll be handcuffed by that $20 million a year going to Myers. So if you can, you absolutely pull the trigger there. I'm not exactly sure what the holdup is, why it's not happening yet, but
It's because of the
oh,
ESPN
baby,
ticker.
I'm down.
Because the ticker says it's the Dodgers.
In that
So
case,
if you are living and
ESPN
dying
wants
with
it
a
to be
ticker,
the Dodgers so bad.
oh
but
my gosh, yeah. You were telling me yesterday, oh yeah, the Padres are really hot, and then I go home last night and I'm watching the ticker. I'm like, not according to the ticker, Brian. That's not. The ticker's saying something else.
I got a different ticker, and it bleeds.
Padre fans should
it
follow
bleeds,
yours.
It bleeds brown and gold. So that's the ticker I live off.
Thomas, you hearing, reading anything?
Yeah, it's down to those two for sure, the Dodgers and the Padres. The thing I heard at the beginning of the week was, the players that were going to go from San Diego to Boston were agreed upon. It's all about Myers' contract and the money.
And how much they're willing to swallow.
Percentage of which team. And when I heard that, then I kind of fooled around for 2 days with the lineup, and I'm telling you, you have Tatis Jr., Betts, and Machado, and in whatever order you want in your top 3. You can't tell me that you're not a serious playoff contender. I looked. Tell me the team that matches them.
How about Tommy Pham too?
Yeah.
The on-base machine in there.
He'll be
Throw
probably
him in the
6
mix
in that
too.
lineup probably.
Crazy.
Because you want balance, so you'll probably move Hosmer to 4.
Who bats 5?
Tommy Pham maybe.
Pham instead of 6. Okay.
I mean, you got to do it just for that. I mean, and then of course you get the Twitter, the lovely Twitter world, and one guy said, well, if you knock off all these contracts, you have $35 million for next year. You could definitely sign them, but I think right now in sports, it's a 1-year deal with all these players.
Yeah.
And to me, if you can get Mookie Betts for Myers and a bushel of prospects, you do it, because I think you're going to be contending for at least a wild card spot, and maybe even the Dodgers. Because I look at that Dodgers lineup. I mean, they don't have 3 players like that in their lineup. I mean, I don't care what those analytic nerds do up in the front office. They bench.
Watch
like
your
it.
tone.
Yes. This is great.
They benched Clay Bellinger during the World Series. Give me a break. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's it. I'm
Andy
sorry.
Bishop, I'm with it. I'm with it.
So what's
I try to be somber.
So if you're the Padres, what's an acceptable level of contract that you're still willing to absorb from Will Myers in order to get rid of him? So it's $61 million over 3 years is what's
Yeah.
left. So if the Red Sox say, look, we'll pay $10 million of that?
No.
Is it worth it? What's the level
Later.
what's the Mookie Betts worth level on the contract where you say yes to this number but no to 10 of the 61 million? Half?
30 million.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
So now why?
I'll let Andy
For
answer
you
why.
guys, no.
I'm going to give
So-
the answer.
No, so now why though for you? Not for the Padres management and their bottom line, because you don't
for
have to
me,
pay that bill.
I don't care because I don't
Right,
have
yes,
the bill.
okay, yes.
The only reason I care about their I mean, it's
Okay.
not coming out of my
Yeah.
pocket. The only reason I care is because that extra $10 million, if they owe $20 million to Will Myers next year, that's another player we can't go out and sign, whether it's a pitcher or someone else. So it's for future value of what it means to our financial flexibility. Like, if we don't have Will Myers, if we have to pay Will Myers $5 million next year instead of 20, or $10 million instead of 20, that frees up $10 to $15 million that this ownership group in the past, they just wouldn't spend it. They'd be like, oh, we get to keep my money.
Yeah.
But the Padres have now shown that they are willing to spend to compete. So I think that's money that they would then go out and spend on somebody and bring in a high impact player.
I agree. Like you said, this management has shown that it's willing to spend. I think the payroll is going to be close to 150 this year.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm
already
wrong.
with the Myers contract on the books, it's going to be around 150.
Well,
Okay.
if we bring in Mookie Betts, it's going to be even higher this year because Mookie's getting 27 this year, and Will Myers is only getting 20.
Okay.
The difference is next year when Will Myers is also getting 20 and Mookie's getting 0 from us, unless we re-sign him or something. But that's its own deal.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, this year the payroll could even go up higher.
Okay, so I wanna cause a shift. I want to shift our thinking as sports fans. So I'd like to cause a shift in how we're thinking about some of these things, because we have gotten trained as sports fans now by management to think in terms of the luxury
money.
tax like it's our luxury tax. Like the Padres can't go and spend more than X 150 million or 175 million because then, or we can't go ahead and have 30 million still on the books because then we can't go and get X guy.
Okay.
There is money flowing into Major League Baseball. And my concern as a fan is not what their bottom line is. My concern as a fan is compete. But you see a lot of fans talking now about how, so-and-so's contract isn't worth it because now we don't have any money to spend.
Yeah.
Baloney, we don't have any money to spend. You're getting so much money from MLB properties. There's a ton of money to spend. And single game tickets for the Padres go on sale February 6th. Single game tickets. How many more tickets are you selling if Mookie Betts is on your team than already a pretty darn good team coming up for the season's good? You're going to be making money hand over fist.
Yep.
So I don't care if the Padres payroll is $200 million every year. That's not my concern, and that shouldn't be any of our concerns or anybody else watching either or following the Padres is $200 million. The concern should be like, put players on the field that are showing a commitment to winning. Don't give me the line called, we can only spend X amount because we can't afford it. Then why are you in this game to begin with? So I think we need to cause that. I hear too many fans talking about that now, like, the Mariners. Well, we're only going to have a $60 million payroll this year because that's all we can afford. All we can afford? No, you can afford a lot more than that because you're going to get that amount of money or some portion of that already from just MLB's properties online.
So then if we're just looking at players and not money, I absolutely want 1 year of Mookie Betts instead of 3 years of Will Myers.
And you should.
Done. But game over.
Even if you're only losing $10 million of Myers' contract. Yeah.
You're using a formula
That point I take.
that's used in the NFL. In baseball, it's not divided by 32 teams. It's your own it's your own deal. I mean, I've read this year in the winter meetings that teams are outraged that the Yankees are thinking because they repurchased back the Yes Network, and they formed a deal with Amazon. They're gonna have their own network on Amazon and then their own network on Sirius Radio, and the other teams are like, what?
Well, you control your own broadcast rights
Yeah.
like that. I'm talking about, though, Major League Baseball has done an outstanding job on the streaming side and on the whole web side of things and creating a whole revenue stream there that is divided equally amongst the 32 teams.
I don't think it is.
You don't think it is? It's
No.
still
It's not like pro football.
It's still portioned, but the web piece, not the Yankees broadcast rights versus the Padres broadcast
I meant
rights.
gear too. I think it's buyer beware. It isn't. If you make $1 off if I sell a Tony Gwynn jersey, here in San Diego, off the MLB website, it's your whatever you can generate. Good luck to you, and you'll get a portion of that. But not everybody gets from the same pie.
But why have we bought in as fans to that management line called, we can only spend $120 million this year because that's all we can afford, and then we start spouting that as well.
Built this threshold where, if you spend this certain amount of money, then you're going to get taxed on it. And
Yes.
really, what the owners are mad about is okay, you get this threshold, we throw the money into the kitty for a penalty, and then it's dispersed down to the lower level teams, but they've never seen the lower level teams, actually spend. What is it? The Pittsburgh Pirates. What have they done to make themselves better?
Right.
They just traded Starling Marte for basically nothing.
Yes. And if I'm a Pirates fan,
For some
my
peanuts and
concern
Cracker
is
Jacks.
not that my concern I should not be spouting the line called, oh, right, we can only afford a $50 million payroll this year with the Pirates. We should be getting rid of Marte. We should be, if I'm a Pirates fan, I'm ticked off that we did that. Or the promise of future, like, oh, we're going to build for the future again. Why am I always on the future train?
There is that, but then there's also, you still have to live within the reality of your team.
But that's
Like, if you're
management's
a
concern. That's not my concern as
No,
a
but
fan.
it is, as a fan, you're saying, like, hey, if we can get Mookie Betts and get Will Myers' contract off the books, maybe we can get this other guy later on because I know how management works. And if we don't get rid of Will Myers' contract, we're not getting another player next year.
But maybe that's part of the problem is we need to hold people, I don't know how you do that as
But
a
even,
fan
yeah,
necessarily, but
that's-
holding
that's-
management
that's the
accountable
question I wanna
instead
know.
of
How do you hold them
spouting a
accountable?
line
Because if
called-
I don't buy a jersey, then I feel like I don't have a jersey. And, like, that only hurts me. It's not going to hurt their bottom line, my,
Well,
$100,
Thomas, you're from New
$130
York.
that I didn't buy.
How does New York hold the Yankees and Mets accountable over the years for?
Oh, you cannot use New York.
But look,
Let's get back
that's
to
been the complaint of
let's
like
get
San
back to-
Diego media
no,
for a
but
long
let's get
time.
back to Pittsburgh.
No, no,
because
no.
New York, you've got
But-
how many millions of people?
But that's been one of the complaints about San Diego media that I've heard from other members of San Diego media,
they
which
don't
is that
hold their feet to the fire.
they don't hold their feet to the fire, and that the fans don't hold their feet to the fire. So there's a little bit of room for management to go, well, it's such a great experience that it's okay if we're 70 and 92 because it's a great experience. So, we're going to draw 15,000 instead of 20. Not the end of the world, right? So I don't know if that's necessarily true, but again,
it is a good
a lot of
experience,
things backed up with no evidence whatsoever. But
I will tell you, the New York Mets get a lot of criticism, and especially last year, when their fans basically begged them to get into with the Machado because he was just sitting there, and nobody
For
knew
the
at the
taking,
time that the
yeah.
Padres were the mystery team, and they were like, come on, it's got to be the Mets. I mean, they're playing New York, and the Mets were crying poverty, and the fans went crazy.
Yes.
They're like,
and maybe
how
we
can
need
you
to
be
do
in
that.
poverty? You play in New York.
Maybe we need to do that. Like you hear the ownership group saying, Ron Fowler saying, hey, we got to get it done here this year or, in the next year or two.
I don't
But
see a problem with the Padre ownership. They
no,
spend
no,
money.
No, I get that. I'm just saying generally as a fan base, we're making the argument on behalf of management, we should only eat $30 million of Will Myers' contract, when in reality, Mookie Betts is probably worth that $50 million difference just in ticket sales over the course of a 162-game season, plus if they make playoffs, and the jersey sales and everything else. So why am I making the argument for, if it's less
Yeah,
than
it needs to
$20
be
million
half
of
that,
Myers,
yeah.
then
If
we're not
you
going to get
wanna solve
Betts.
the problem, then make an over and under, and you get penalized for both. If your over is like $200 million, like it is now, then teams are going to have to pay a penalty. But if they're under, let's say, $90 million,
Oh, I like
and
it.
then
Then
you
that
get a penalty
is good.
for that,
Yeah.
and I guarantee you'll see money.
especially
A
if
ceiling
you're-
and a floor.
And
Write that
management
article,
will not-
Thomas.
management will not open the books to the players' union to let them know, well, how poor are you? Like how you're only like free agency is not going great. So is it really because you can't afford to spend more than $90 million, or is it because you won't spend more than $90 million? And now you've given the line to your fan base called, well, we can't spend more than $90 million, but we're stocking up on prospects. So one day will be good. And now you're living into the one day conversation for the next 5 years, 10 years. And I think Padre fans are getting to that point where, and I don't know, you guys have been Padre fans much longer than I have, but how much longer is the one day, right? Is it this year? Is it next year? Do we go 3 years from now and we trade Machado because, we're going to stock up on more guys for the one day that's going to be 5 years from now again? Like, how does that work?
That's I think Mookie Betts is in our face one day. Like they're talking about Campusano as one of the big pieces, the catching prospect.
Okay.
He hasn't even played in Double-A. Like, he is a one day in the future guy. Get rid of him for Mookie Betts. Like, do it. I'm down for that. I'm okay for today to be the day. Like, let's have one day be now.
Yes.
That's what I want.
Okay.
So I'm with that.
I'm with that.
Yeah, I think when I started hearing the news about Betts, I was really hesitant because I've always hated the idea of, renting a player for a year. But when I saw you mention about Kevin Brown, his impact on the 98
That was a great
Padres
tweet,
team.
Brian. Yeah.
And some of the conversation here, I would accept it, and I wouldn't mind. I think it would just be another decent step in trying to make the Padres relevant across Major League Baseball, which hasn't been the case for the last 15 years. Signing of Hosmer, Machado, the rebranding.
Yep.
Signing a player like Betts. New manager.
Yep.
I am hopeful that that's in the trend of relevancy, a middle market team for the next 10 years. So I'll take Betts, yes.
Did you live here, Jeff, in
1998?
Yes. I just moved into San Diego
Okay.
in September '98. Yes.
And I mean, to me, that was, look, I'm a Yankee fan, so I apologize for that. But for me, that 98 season here in San Diego was by far the most fun I've had watching a team, because when this town gets around a team, like I went to a couple of the playoff games in Qualcomm, and then I just stayed to tailgate with the fans in the other ones during the playoff run. I mean, this town gets behind a team, man. Look out! This town is first class in that aspect.
Oh yeah, I mean, if San Diego State plays at Staples, Staples is going to be packed with State fans, and because that is the pro basketball team here. And if the Padres go on a run, people will get behind that thing because they are eager for something like that.
That game against Utah, I guarantee you, there was only 3,000 fans in Staples, and they moved the entire San Diego State where fans down to the court, and you would have thought it was the Final Four then. That was the loudest little section of crowd of fans for a team. We were adjacent to the bench, and that was by far the most fun I've ever had at a basketball game. I sat behind the basket, and I watched them dominate, and I watched it with all my friends, and it was great.
Yeah, people want a winner, and they want here in particular in San Diego, they want a winner, and they want to know you're making steps to build that. And they have been patient. And I'm like a Padres liker, I'm not like my team's the Angels, right? So I've seen that happen there too. But like, you got to go, like, you're built, we get the building for the future. We've seen you put the pieces in place, but don't keep running the runway out in a someday maybe, because if you notice, someday is not a day on the calendar. It's not. It's got to be, at some point, it's got to be, now we're striking. We are striking now. So if the Dodgers beat you to Betts, great. I mean, then they've made a better offer and fine. But it shouldn't be, I would hate to hear the Padres said, no, we're not going to pick up Betts, and he goes to the Dodgers because the Red Sox would only eat $15 million of Will Myers' contract over 3 years instead of 30. It's like, too bad. Make it happen. You'll make up $15 million in ticket sales just by adding Betts to the roster, especially if you do it before February 6th with single game tickets. That will be nuts. You'll sell millions of dollars of tickets within the first week.
But I don't think Ron Fowler has I mean, you read his comments. I don't think he's looking for a participation trophy.
No. And I'm not saying he is either. I'm just saying, as fans, I'd like us to get away from the someday conversation with any team. Or we could be talking about the Padres. We could be talking about some other team that's saying this as well. Like, as a fan, my concern is I want to see a good team on the field and my team making a best faith effort to put a good team out in the field so we can win games. And I'm okay with the build the runway piece for a short amount of time, but not as a perpetual management strategy called save money. Even the A's will have a down period, but you get within 3 or 4 years, they're going to be competitive and make a playoff run. Even if they get bounced in the wild card, it's going to get fun in Oakland again. The Padres have not had that for 15 years now. When was the last time they were in the playoffs? 06? And the last time they made a serious run was 07?
10.
Okay, so once in 15
games,
years.
Yeah.
And if you're looking at the A's model, they're making do with maybe even less. And I wouldn't say Bean is necessarily drafting better than the Padres have across the board. We've just made we've bought into a condition called, oh, well, we can only spend so much amount of money. Well, then why are the A's successful every 2, 3, 4 years? Why do they have a season? We haven't had that. So let's shift the mindset is, I guess, what I'm saying. I don't know if this is where you thought this was going to go when you posed a question like, so tell me what you think the Padres are going to do this year. But
we love a non-homer insight here at the BCSC.
And I like the Padres. I think
it's
it's
so
going to be a
strange.
fun team.
I don't know.
It's going to be a fun team with or without Mookie Betts. But I like,
Yeah.
let's shift it as fans a little bit more.
Can't comprehend the non-homer. I'm just kidding. I agree with you, Jeff. I like it.
Yeah, I like the take.
I'm just getting my garbage can ready because I'm going to go up to that to that opening day when the Angels host the Astros, and I'm going to be right behind that Astro dugout with my garbage can.
I wonder if the Angels are going to have to institute a no garbage
They're for
can
sure not going to let
policy.
anybody in with those. They can't.
Yeah.
But I'll be
Just
my,
bring some
my
thunder
one-man
sticks. That'll
band.
simulate. You got to dust off the thunder sticks from 2002. I bet that'll simulate a garbage can sound.
Bring your rally monkey, Jeff.
Yes, I'll bring a rally monkey.
That's my problem. Baseball has so many more problems than salary. It's like teams, circumventing, the honor system, playing games, and then this complete nonsense of using, having a guy in the dugout and then Altuve wearing a buzzer to tell, I mean.
We haven't talked about the cheating, have we?
No,
Oh
we
my
did.
God.
We
We did?
Yeah,
Like the week
it gone so much farther though.
Okay.
Since
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've now known. Now we know like a whole lot more.
We
about
should say unsubstantiated so far that Altuve's
Nah,
we don't.
I'm as mad as you are, and I have liked the Astros for a
I'm
long
not-
time.
We don't give them any benefit of any
But,
doubt around here.
But
this is an impeachment.
I'm mad at
hearing
them
now.
too.
Come on now.
I'm mad at them as well. I think it's ridiculous that they've done. I mean, it's one thing if you are at second base and you figure out the catcher's signs
Yeah.
and you signal your pitcher. That's just good detective work in the middle of a game. But using the technology to try to make that happen is ridiculous.
That's not okay.
And then using it over the course of and how many guys? Who is it? Oh, Mike Clevenger wrote about this on Twitter. I saw him do a Twitter rant about this. Mike Clevenger, the pitcher for the Indians.
Yep.
And he wrote about how many guys' careers got impacted because suddenly the Astros knew they were throwing a breaking ball.
Yeah.
And then they never played in the
them up.
major leagues ever again, or they got sent down, their ERAs ballooned or whatever. I mean, it's like that's impactful at a personal employment level.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's different than if you just, hey, I picked up the catcher's signs in this game, and I was at second base, guys. So,
Yeah.
they're throwing curveballs every time the pitcher does a little twitch. I mean, that's different. And that is impactful, and I thought that was a great point by Clevenger.
Well, look at Kershaw that night when he gave up all those home runs in that World Series against the Astros. You had John Smoltz and I forget who was the third man in the booth, basically talking like he's going to have to reconsider his overall approach to the game. And it's like,
well, sure, the other team knows
there's
what
a
to throw
buzzer and a garbage can getting hit while they're talking, and it's like it's such nonsense. Man.
His new approach
really
should be
irritates me.
saying to the catcher, we're going to throw a fastball here. Let's just get all the, just so
Doing
you know
an
it's
all-star
coming
game.
in. And he's going to set up right there, turn around, look, check out the signal,
There was a fan for the Astros, and I'm looking him up right now to see
Oh,
if I
yeah,
can-
that was crazy.
who did an analysis. Have you guys seen this?
That was
Of
wild.
cutting the video? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the first
where-
guy who cut the video, but there's another guy who did the analysis who took 52 games over the course of the home games for the Astros over the course of the season.
All the ones he could get
and
video access
broke it
to,
down
yeah.
and put it into statistical graphs because he's a Astros fan, but he was so mad about what had happened. I'm trying to find his name.
What percentage of their pitches the trash can was banged on, and like how many of their at bats, like, and what their average, like the analysis is really crazy.
It's amazing, and everyone should check that out. His analysis, he posted on Twitter, and is going to let the stat heads kind of figure out what it means. But just the percentage of pitches that guys saw where you could hear the trash can banging, and Yuri Gurriel was the highest. Gurriel, Beltran, Correa, Bergman,
Bregman, yeah,
and, Bregman and Marisnik, I think, were the top five who got the most help on pitches, and Gurriel had the best year he'd ever had. Well, if I know a curveball's coming and I'm going to lay off that thing,
yeah. Or you're going to hit it into the
Darvish.
next stratosphere.
yeah.
Yu Darvish was basically laughed off the Dodgers because he was a bum.
And his free agency
Yeah.
was impacted
And-
because
and
suddenly maybe he can't
redid-
throw.
He redid his whole his whole pitching trying to come up with a new delivery
Yeah.
for what? Because Gurriel hits a home run down the left field line because a buzzer went off. I mean, this is ridiculous.
It's going to be interesting to see how Major League Baseball players respond to this whole thing as the season progresses. I mean, they may just put it behind them, or they may...
they may put it behind them, or they may put it in their ribs.
Yeah,
That's
could
what I
be.
I already went through that.
Yeah.
Man, I got baseball dad jokes up the wazoo.
What do you make of the Dusty Baker hiring?
I think it's going to restore some integrity to that dugout.
Yeah.
Because he's a old school, not mess around guy, and I think that'll restore some integrity. That's a good hire for them, even if they don't do as well this year.
Yeah.
And Baker can manage. He's a good manager, but I think that restores some integrity to the dugout.
Yeah.
What are these mimeograph scouting reports?
But sometimes you need
I think
that.
it's all a show.
I think you
hire.
need that kind of like opposite to at least lend some credibility. Like, here's a guy who played in more of the old school environment who is going to be a little bit more of a, okay, enough of the nonsense kind of stuff. At least that's my sense of what's going on.
It sounds like Mark Kotze is going to be the manager of the Red Sox, or he's under
Really?
consideration. Yeah.
Wow. I like Mark
Didn't
Kotze.
know that.
Hey, I didn't. That's breaking news to me.
Get your garbage can ready. when you
Yeah.
come in.
Oh, I'm ready, baby. I was going to say one thing on episode 22. I did have one thing I wanted to mention, and I didn't know this before Sunday night when I was with my parents. We were watching the Kobe stuff, and they were showing some. Elgin Baylor was talking about Kobe, and they were showing some Elgin Baylor highlights. And my dad always wore number 22. That was like his number of basketball for his entire life, and I always liked the number 22 because of that. But I had no idea that the reason my dad was number 22 growing up was because of Elgin Baylor. And my dad grew up in L.A., and Elgin Baylor was his favorite Laker, and he was number 22. So when I was thinking about, we talk about each episode, we're like, oh, who was number 19 or number 20 or 21? And number 22, Elgin Baylor for my pops. I thought that was kind of cool.
Nice.
So, and we just happened to be coming into episode 22, and that's a nugget that I didn't know, and I wouldn't have known probably if it wasn't for what happened with Kobe. So
I wonder what number we're going to talk about for episode 23. Who's
There's a few.
23?
Quentin Jammer.
Well, we're keeping it local then, yes.
Fernando Tatis Jr., right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Tatis
boom.
Jr.
All right. Speaking of Michael Jordan, Drew Cunningham, one of my best friends, is a Chicago guy. He's a huge Michael Jordan guy. So if we're talking 23, we're talking about Jordan. I got my Jordans on.
Oh.
So Drew, I'm thinking about you, big guy. Love you, man.
Maybe I'll wear the new Jordans I got if I'm lucky enough to be on if I get invited back for episode 23. It all depends on if the 49ers win or not, though, I guess.
That's right. This guy's at it. It's going to be back to a 3-shot if that happens. So.
I'm going to get
All right.
cut out.
Great stuff, guys. What a fun conversation. It obviously comes on a solemn week, but here at McGregor's, any final thoughts from the plethora of things we've talked about today?
Just thanks for having me, and it's really great to have an opportunity. I mean, this is what people do in their living room or with their friends, except we have microphones and a platform. So I appreciate you guys letting me. It's great talking sports with you guys. Anyway, we do this without a platform, so thanks for letting me be part of the conversation this week.
Thank you for coming on, man.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I'm looking forward to the Super Bowl now. I'll try to cram it in an all-night session over the next 2 nights and get ready for Sunday, but it's really the first Super Bowl where I don't even know where I'm going to watch it. I'll probably just watch it by myself because I haven't committed anything.
Thomas, you come over the Vilvin Super Bowl party.
so.
The door's open, man. You come on over.
Best Coast
close-
Sports Connection fans will invite
Close by,
Thomas
yeah.
Conroy, local
You're
personality.
not allowed to
go
watch
the
on
Super
your
Bowl.
own, Thomas. You come over. Door's always open for you.
Thank you.
You have to post
All
some of
of
that
you
on
as
the
well.
Instagram page.
Yeah.
Brian, any final?
Just this week I had like a realization around the Kobe piece. It brought me to tears a number of times, and I didn't know if it was okay to cry for someone that you don't know, but I realized that we do know these people, and we did know Kobe, and I did know Kobe. He was a huge part of my life as a Laker fan and as a basketball fan. I wasn't as big a part of his life, but he was a big part of mine. So it's okay to be emotional and to cry. And it reminded me when I was a little kid and Princess Diana died, and my mom was like really into British royalty. That's like one of her hobbies, you know, like being obsessed with the royals. And she was like devastated when Princess Diana died. But I was a little kid, so I was like, Mom, why are you crying? Like, you don't know this person. It's not like a parent or something. Like, you don't know. And I finally understand why my mom was so emotional at that time. And so just kind of, it sunk in with me that it is okay to cry and it's okay to mourn for people that we didn't have a personal relationship with, because we still know them and they made a difference in our lives and a big impact. And so it's okay to cry. It's okay to be emotional. It's okay to say I love you to your friends. And, you know, it's totally cool.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, I mean, I think this is probably, correct me if I'm wrong, but just the biggest sports death, you know, we've experienced.
Yeah.
Just because he was
Absolutely.
still, you know, in the prime of his life, not yet finished his playing days. But, so yeah, just a rough week in the world of sports, but you know, there's nothing I'd rather do than to end the week, you know, talking with you guys. So this has clearly been the best, you know, episode we've had by far. So thanks for your influence, Jeff. And,
Yeah, you're welcome.
I say we do it again soon. So that'll do it for episode 22. Thanks, guys.